we're going to talk today. We got two topics we're going to talk about. One is going to be impact resistant shingles, stronger roof systems, which I think is super interesting. And then I've got a whole bunch of roof and railing questions to get through. They're pretty general, but I think they're pretty darn interesting. So before I go any further, I am going to if you have questions, if you have comments, use your question feature. I love getting questions. Please send them in. That's what makes our programs roll, and they are well appreciated. If you are here for CEUs, and once again, I love those questions and I love those comments. Sorry, I got a little thrown off here because I was just trying to get settled here when we first got started. Okay, I think I'm all caught up where I want to be. With that being said, I'm going to have our panel introduce themselves with who I see first, and that is, I'm going to do Todd W.
First and foremost, thank you for the opportunity, Ray. Thank you for joining us here today. Very much looking forward to the discussion. My quick background, I'm a licensed professional engineer in several states. I started conducting reserve studies with reserve advisors in 1999. And to this day, I still very much enjoy visiting a property like yours each week.
All right, excellent. And Todd V.
Vignola from Adventures Construction Services. Happy to be here, Ray. Thank you for the opportunity. Hope we can answer some questions for everybody today.
Todd, you fixed your webcam. You are like such a technical wizard now. Remember when we first started? You had to have your assistants do everything.
I got it all right now.
You were able to switch that over right away. All right, so we're going to be talking about these impact resistant shingles, stronger roof systems. This is something that somebody sent me. I did my research on the internet, and this is what I came up with. And you know, both Todds came back with a little bit of commentary on it before we get started. You know, Todd, I'll start with you. Brief description. Is there something really called an impact resistant shingle? Todd W.
Yeah. Great question. So a goal of the roofing industry has been more durable roof systems. That includes these impact resistant shingles. These impact resistant shingles upgraded was like a rubberized polymer or reinforced with fiberglass. The goal, impact resistant to hail. So you primarily see these types of systems in the hail corridors where we see the most severe weather. Right. So those areas where we're seeing that severe weather, likely about half of the roofing systems are these impact resistant shingles at the moment and growing.
Don't get ahead of me, Todd.
Oh.
Okay, cool. You know, Todd, you ran into the same kind of, you gave me back the same commentary. When I threw this term at you, impact resistant shingle, you had the same approach or the same reaction as Todd, the engineer, did, correct?
I did. I actually did a little more research on them. They are very common for areas that are exposed to hail and really heavy windstorms. There is a different type of shingle. We learned at how it was tested. It's actually tested with a giant lead ball that's dropped from 20 feet to land on the shingle to see if it actually breaks the shingle or cracks the shingle. And it's considered a class 4 impact rating. So I don't know exactly what that means, but it is definitely a better, or should I say a stronger quality shingle than what we generally use here in the East Coast.
Okay.
Northeast.
Don't give me the answer yet, but did either of you guys have a chance to dive into the pricing on it at all a little bit? Are we going to be able to talk about that today? Because I know you had to do a little bit of research on that because I didn't give you the right terminology in the beginning.
Should have some information for you shortly in regards to pricing.
Yes.
Todd has such a great group, such a great team that I know exactly what he's up to right now. He's going to get his team on that. They're going to research it and get it right back to Todd, and Todd will incorporate that with his own knowledge. Emma, was that a good guess what you were going to do, Todd?
Exactly what I just did.
Yeah, excellent. All right, so we're not going to spend a lot of time actually talking about roof systems, but I think it's important that we get started somewhere. So roof replacements are not just about choosing a shingle, color, brand, or warranty. What are they about, Todd? What is a roof system? And leave a little room for Todd to fill in there also.
Well,
Todd
first and foremost, for me, my opinion is, well, what does it look like, right? This is your home, and you want to make sure that it's something that you agree with, you know, and if it's the wrong color or the wrong shape or the wrong architectural layout for you. So first and foremost, is it something that you like and you want on your house? I would treat it no different than buying a new car. You want a blue car, buy a blue car. Don't buy a red car if you want a blue car, so important to me is the way it looks.
And Todd, we're not gonna dive deep into this today too, but people have to look at things like the warranty, et cetera. Correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Not just the warranty, but doesn't matter what type of shingles you have, the best in the world, but if the flashings aren't right, the ventilation isn't right, underlayment isn't right, ice and water shield, all kinds of components have to work properly in conjunction with those shingles for a roof system to work properly.
So the roof system really matters, it's not just the shingles. So but we're going to talk about the shingles today. What makes a complete roof system? I think you guys already touched upon that. Underlayment, flashing, roof decking, and ventilation and installation. I read that, Todd. I haven't done enough of these that I would have that memorized. Todd V, was I close enough on that?
You're pretty good on those. The ventilation being a key component.
Oh, interesting. Todd W, why do you think Todd V jumped on the ventilation? I guess that's an overlooked item.
Yeah, absolutely. Extremely overlooked item. And in fact, you see roofers oftentimes replace the shingles, not even look what's in the attic. Are the penetrations bathroom exhaust going through the roof, getting all that moisture out of the unit? Is sufficient insulation to minimize the heat loss from the unit in the attic? That stuff has such a huge impact on the shingle useful life and the durability and how long those shingles last. And it's quite often overlooked.
All right, let's dive into the meat of the problem here, or the meat of the topic. Todd V, what are impact-resistant shingles intended to do? And you can leave a little room for Todd W also. We can jump back and forth, but what are we talking about here? What is the difference?
I think the number one difference is to compare would be in storms that are related to hail and heavier winds. That's where I believe that an impact-resistant shingle will prove its worthiness. In areas that get a lot of hailstorms and heavy winds and those micro cells, those micro weather cells, you'll find that this impact resistant shingle will hold up better in a hailstorm and a heavier windstorm. Todd had mentioned earlier about the components that are built into the product itself. Maybe he can elaborate. I know you said elasticities and other stuff, Todd. So if you want to add to how it makes it stronger, that would be great.
Todd W, why don't you go into the different parts of a shingle, the components of it? I know you did the research on that.
Yeah, these high impact resistant shingles often upgraded with like a rubberized polymer, improves that durability. The theory here is not just the storm damage, but the theory is also minimizes the potential for water infiltration, minimizes the potential for leaks, maximizes that durability. You still have a lot of the same components though, don't forget here. Granules, those surface granules are extremely important no matter what type of shingle you have. So a lot of the same components, it's just that these shingles are reinforced for increased durability.
Todd W, I'm realizing now when I brought this topic to both Todds, Todd W, would this be considered somewhat of a unique item, not used commonly, but would be proper use in certain circumstances like we're talking about?
Increased use. We're seeing an increased use again, especially those hail corridors, depending on what part of the country you're in. One thing that we're very much interested in is, because it's somewhat new, how long does it actually last? Like you hear the big claims about how long these shingles are actually going to last, and we love the opportunity to monitor the rate of deterioration, monitor the rate of issues, to get a feel for how long are they going to actually last.
Todd V, is that, like I said, I threw this. Everybody watching, I threw this at both Todds at the last minute. So, and like I said, this is a unique item, and they have a huge knowledge base. Todd V, can you talk a little bit about that? Have you seen any of the warranty programs on this yet, or did you not have a chance to take a look at that? I know I'm throwing you for.
No, so I'm glad you asked, because it's funny, when I was growing up and started doing the shingle business over 25 years ago, people would tell you, well, I have a 25-year roof. My roof's guaranteed to last 25 years. And those roofs may have been installed within the decade that I had met those people. Now I'm coming to see 25 and 30-year-old roofs fail. So the proven time frame that they said that they would last actually made that time frame of 25 to 30 years. More recently, within a decade ago or so, we've come up with this new lifetime warranty, 50-year shingle. So I would love to tell you that it's lasted 50 years, but I'm only 53 years old. So the reality is I have yet to experience whether or not that product will last that long. Do I have faith in it? I do. I think that the quality of the shingles that are made now, as opposed to the 25-year warranted shingles, are light years above in technology and durability. So I do believe that you will get your 50 years out of a shingle.
And I'm not going to hold you to it, Todd, because it's a little bit unfair. But do you think the warranty program on an impact-resistant shingle will be similar in regard to regular?
Yes, actually, it still can fall under what we would call, and I'm only being brand specific because it's a brand I'm familiar with. GAF has this lifetime warranty. So if you use their shingle, which is considered the, give me a second, the impact-resistant shingle is called Armor Shield, GAF Timberline Armor Shield 2. If you use that in coordination with all of the other products required to meet a lifetime warranty, it will give you the 50-year lifetime warranty for that product. Now, the cost for the shingle itself is actually up to anywhere from 15 to 25% higher for the shingle. Not the entire project, but the shingle itself compared to what we use, which is a UHDZ shingle from GAF, which is a quality shingle, which will get you the 50 years. So you'll pay a little bit more for the shingle itself, but you still get the same warranty. And I believe that you get higher protection because it's obviously impact rated.
So Todd V, for those of us besides you both that can't compute in our head very quickly what the shingle cost would be, how does this relate to a standard size house? Or you give it back to me in a way that I could understand what the price difference would be.
So for example, if you were going to do a shingle, you're talking about maybe a $1,200 upgrade on a 40 square roof house. So 40 square is a common size. That's a larger size roof for a single family dwelling. So if you were going to increase to the Timberline Armor Shield 2, you'd have approximately $1,000 to $1,200 increase in the cost of the project. The project should cost anywhere from about $26,000. So you're in the $25,000 to $27,000 range from a regular shingle to the increase in the Armor Shield shingle.
So Todd W, this is an absolutely loaded question that you may not be able to answer. Do you think a lot of associations in your experience would look at this as being advantageous for these high risk areas?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm a little more pessimistic as opposed to Todd here. We just came off this period of roofing companies having these fantastic marketing campaigns of crazy useful life shingles that really aren't come to fruition living that long, making it that long. So I'd be glad, fantastic to have these impact resistant shingles last 50, 40 years, but I'm a little more pessimistic. I'm not so sure we're heading that direction just yet as making it that long, but I guess we'll see. We'll have to see how this all plays out. But that's not a whole lot of increase in cost, right? It's not a whole lot of increase in cost for a more durable shingle. Boy, that's something I would probably jump on if I was a board member.
I was thinking the same thing, Todd V, and I'm not a board member. So what is your gut reaction? Do you think this is something that board should, go ahead.
So for example, I just only gave you the size of a single family dwelling. But when you go to an entire complex, you go from 40 square to 2,000 square. So you have 50 times the ratio. So it's a $50,000 increase in the cost of the shingle in an overall project that is an entire community, not just a single dwelling home. So your house, if you live in a house, it's 40 square, talk about $1,000 to $1,200 more for your shingle. But now we have to do 50 of those houses in a community. Now we've just brought the price up to more like $60,000. That's a number that is hard for a community to digest. Now, here's the other thing that I think would deter them from going with that shingle. Either way, if you go with the GAF product, you're getting a lifetime warranty. So why would you spend the 50 or 60 grand more for the Armor Shield if you're going to get the same warranty with the regular HDZ shingle? That's the question that I think would make the client, the board members, the community itself question whether or not they were going to add that extra money in.
Todd, V, if you think this is a legal question, by all means, pass on it. Are you telling me that the average shingle warranty right now, if there's a hailstorm or, or one of these high impact zones, damages the shingles and causes a tremendous amount of leaks, you're going to tell me that will be covered under most cases? Because then what would be the advantages of these impact resistant shingles, and why would anybody be buying on that?
So, yes, according to the GAF warranty, and I don't have it specific legally terms, but yes, you should be covered up to a certain amount of wind mile per hour. If it exceeds, and I don't know those numbers, let's say it's 125 miles an hour, for an example, and it's a 160 mile an hour storm, I would assume that GAF may have the right to retreat on that warranty. Again, I'm not a GAF rep, can't answer those questions exactly. But then you say, well, what would be the reason to go with the hail? So along with hail doesn't necessarily mean 135 mile an hour winds. And if you know you're in an area that's going to be subject to hail regularly, and you want to use that shingle, it would help to alleviate any further invasions to the community. Meaning, if you have a hailstorm every 5 years, you're going to be working on your roofs. But if you decided to go with this product, and it defeats the hail, it beats the hailstorm, then you have no invasive construction taking place after that hailstorm took place. Your roofs hold up, they don't leak, the shingles didn't break, everyone's happy, and you move on. So I think it's very a question that would be answered based on location and the experience of the community and what type of storms they've had in the past.
Todd W., I was right on board with you when your commentary about it. I think it would be worth it in certain areas, just based exactly what Todd V just said. I mean, you're bored. You don't want to deal with all these leaks, right? It's not just the fact that the shingles are ruined, but look at all the other damage and the insurance claims and all the paperwork you're going to be chasing, right? For months after a major storm. Well, if you just purchase these shingles in the beginning, you're going to have a lot happier residents.
Yeah, absolutely. All great points by Todd. Just a quick note here, two quick notes here. I believe these shingles are also marketed as an improved resistance to water infiltration, improved resistance to leaks. So a little side benefit. And Todd, I'd also be interested to hear if you're hearing anything about insurance discounts. So utilization of this type of shingle results in a discount in your insurance. Maybe that makes up some of that money. At least that's what it's marketed as a way to reduce your insurance.
Right. So I'm not quite sure about the insurance. I actually did read about that you should check with your insurance carrier to see if there is discounts. It would make sense, right? You're paying more for a shingle that's supposed to protect you to a higher advantage. So maybe they would lower your insurance costs. And we all know how expensive it is for insurance right now. So there could be a takeaway from the additional 40 or 50 or 60 grand that you put into the roof. Maybe that carries out over the next 10 years in insurance decrease costs.
Let's do this. I'm going to send a text message to Dawn Becker-Durham and Kristen Serenini and see if they can get back to us during the live stream. Hi, guys. I am in the middle of a live stream with some roofers and an engineer, and we are wondering if there is a discount in regard to insurance for impact-resistant shingles. If you could text me back, I would love to let people know on the live stream. Thank you.
Very nice. Very nice.
I don't know if they'll get back to me. Go ahead, Todd. W.
Yeah, great. That's a great question. I'm very interested to hear what they come back with. I have also heard certain parts of the country, insurance companies are not quite, they're a little more strict on when they fund a total replacement of a roof system. So maybe you have these impact resistant shingles, a little more durable. If they're not as quick to replace your roof due to hail damage, maybe this helps here.
Okay.
That makes sense.
It does. And I've actually heard the insurance, what a surprise. The insurance companies are getting tougher and tougher with paying things out. So, yeah, I didn't want to put the insurance stuff in here too much because I knew it would be a tricky thing and it changes all the time, which makes me nervous too. I don't want to spend too much time on this. Engineering, long-term reserves. We lost, hopefully Todd will be back, but Todd W., this will obviously be accounted in for reserves. Is this an item you may see in a reserve, this extra cost for these extra shingles?
So for my Todd V's comment about the increase in cost matches what our understanding is. That roughly 3% to 14%, that range and increase in cost. So we are seeing an increased use in these shingles. So when we see these higher quality impact resistant shingles, again, way down the road for replacement, but we are building in those higher costs. There are associations who have a near-term roof replacement project, and they tell us they're going to use a higher quality, more durable, impact-resistant shingle. And of course, then at that point, we're also then building in those additional costs. But again, I just want to remind everybody, cost of the shingle is a big part of the overall cost, but there's a ton of other costs associated with a replacement of a roof system that really make up the majority of the project.
All right, I'm trying to get Todd back here. I don't know what, let me back in. Yeah, he's registered as a panelist, so I have to try to get him back up here.
Okay.
All right, Todd, you just happen to be on the wrong link by the way, Todd, too. That's what's going on here. You keep jumping in as an attendee, but you're back. So every time you jump out, if you have a problem with the connection, Todd, you got to text me so I can get you back in.
Okay.
But
that was it.
Yeah, I don't think you missed too much there, Todd. So we were just talking about the reserve aspect and whether or not that would be part of it.
Keep in mind,
Todd V, do we have? Go ahead.
One last note,
Todd,
we can't give those useful lives that they are being claimed here just yet. We got to see some of this actually, the rate of deterioration heading towards that direction. Like, we're not giving 50-year useful lives, even 40, even 35. We have to see that actually happen in real life, at least see the rate pointing in that direction. And we're just quite not there yet.
Todd W, how come you keep bringing that up? You seem like really concerned about the warranty promise here. I'm just curious. I'm not against it. I'm curious why you've brought it up like 3 times.
That's a constant battle here with, hey, we bought a 25-year shingle. Why are you not giving me 25 years of useful life? We bought a 35-year shingle. Why are you not giving me 35 years of useful life? That's a weekly battle here at Reserve Advisors with clients. Unfortunately, we have to include the useful lives that we're actually seeing happen in the field. We can't just go by what the roofing companies, their marketing materials state that shingle is going to last.
But why don't we just tell them it's for Todd V and myself? Why don't we just tell people it's a 1,000-year warranty? We're not going to be around anyway. So maybe Todd V will be around. He goes hunting and he runs around and he keeps in good shape and everything. Maybe he'll make it another 50 years in the business, but I'm not going to be around. It's like when you go to the car and it's like, what's those deals, Todd V, that, we'll give you $1 million if we won't buy some stupid, you know what I mean? You know what I'm getting at, right, Todd V?
I understand. I don't want to be around for 50 years in the industry, just to get that out there real quick. I don't need that. Take it 10 more. 50
All right, it'll just be Todd W then. 50 years. All right, so this is a great question, and somebody from the audience actually asked it. Thank you so much. But I had it also. The question from the audience is, will there be an increase in cost for other roof components we use these impact shingles? I had the same question, Todd V. I was thinking if there's a weight issue, and actually I forgot to ask a question, Todd V. Are these shingles thicker? That's my first question. And then this is the second part.
I'm going to have to research that last question for you about the thickness. And then when it comes to the other products that are in support of the roof, meaning the paper that goes underneath it, the collars, the drip edges, all of that stuff. So first and foremost, and somebody said, is there going to be an increase? The answer to that is always the word yes. Okay. So I've been doing roofing now for 28 years, and religiously every 6 months, it doesn't matter what's going on in the world, the shingles and all the components are subject to increases. It happens all the time, middle of the year, end of the year. So shingle prices in 28 years that I've been doing it have never dropped. They've only increased. They are more than double what it used to cost when I started this business 28 years ago. So just for your understanding, you'll never get a discount on a shingle. In regards to the products that go underneath it, those products, from what I interpret, are the exact same products that would stay underneath the shingles. You'd use the same type of paper, tiger paw, you would use, or armor deck. You would use the vent collars now, which like for GAF, they have their own vent collars. and all of the aluminum drip edges that they tell you to use and stuff like that. Components that are required to meet the warranty for this shingle, the Armor Shield, as opposed to the regular shingle, the components underneath are equal. There's no change in those.
Todd, great information. Thank you so much. You're really honest, especially for something I just threw at you the other day. I think Todd W is looking that up. Maybe I'm going to jump to you in a second, Todd W. I got one more question for Todd V, just a general question. You know, I'm curious, Todd V, do shingles vary greatness and thickness, and does thickness mean anything in the quality of the shingle?
So there's a couple of major brands of shingles, right? Let's say you have GAF, you have Owens Corning, you have Tamco. You can lay all those shingles down next to each other, and you will find differences in every one of those shingles. One shingle is actually measured in metric as opposed to standard, length and width wise. The other shingles have different architectural designs on them, and the thickness. Now, I don't have a micrometer, but I can assure you from the eye, you can see a difference in shingles, especially when you go from a 50-year shingle to a 25-year shingle.
Todd, my question is, does thickness matter? If I'm holding a thicker shingle, can I assume it's a better shingle than a thin one?
I would like to say yes. I would like to say that, yeah, I think you get more protection.
Okay.
But
Todd W., do you want to jump in? Todd W., you want to jump on that, or?
Yeah, very interesting question. And I believe that these impact resistant shingles are just a touch thicker, like 10 to 15% thicker, so not a whole lot. But the key here is that it's not really the thickness, that it's the flexibility. When it's hit with hail, these impact resistant shingles have the ability to flex, absorb, kind of dissipate that energy. So that helps with the durability. It's not really just, hey, it's super, super thick, it's going to be resistant to hail. It's that ability to flex and absorb that energy that's key with these shingles.
Okay, awesome. All right, so one more question, and then we're going to wrap up and go to some more of the siding and other roofing questions we have. Todd V, is there anything in particular that boards and managers should be careful about if they go in this direction to make sure that's on their quote? Any key words that you feel they should look for? How do they know they're really getting, let me rephrase, Todd V. How do boards and managers really know they're getting impact resistant shingles and just not getting a snow job?
Okay. So if, for example, an association chooses to go with an engineering firm to design the scope of work for the roof, the engineering firm will designate the exact products that they want the roofer to install for the client. So you, as the homeowner association, the board members, you hire X engineer, you want to be in communication with them, and you want to say to them, we want a GAF 50-year shingle. What do you suggest for hail impact? And then that engineer will say to you, well, you have choices. You can use this product, or this product. Whatever choice you and the engineer make together as a team is what your contractor has to deliver upon installation and awarding of the contract. So I cannot bid a job to an engineer who scopes out Timberline Armor Shield shingles and show up there with a Owens Corning shingle. I would be in violation of my contract. And that is one of the reasons that associations should and can use engineering firms for roofing. Okay. If you choose as an association not to go with an engineering firm for whatever reason that may be, you really need to be dialed in on what your contractor has in his proposal, his or her proposal. So it shouldn't just say asphalt shingle, because that gives that contractor the right to choose any shingle. You want it to be brand specific. And for us, like I can tell you, we only sell a Golden Pledge roof. We won't sell anything less than that. It doesn't make sense to us. So our proposals will always state Golden Pledge, GAF, and define the shingle and the color, obviously.
Okay. And then Todd, can you make yourself a little higher in the frame? If you can't, don't mess with it. I don't want to risk losing you there, because when we do the recorded version, the bottom of your head is going to get cut off a bit there. Okay. So sorry about that. Todd W. I think this is something, in my opinion, that would definitely be worth investing in having an engineer or a qualified professional review that quote, because man, I would be so nervous. I don't know what the legalities are, and I don't want to touch upon that, of somebody just saying something's an impact resistant shingle when maybe it's not. You know what I'm getting at, Todd W?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question here. Great topic. That use of an independent experienced engineer to design the specifications, to develop the specification. It's the only way to have apples to apples bids, right? If you get 3 different roofing contractors to bid on it, the only way to have apples to apples comparison is have the exact same specifications. And also, we talked earlier about how it's not just the shingles, everything else has to work together. Use of that independent engineer or architect, they can make sure that every single component that needs to be just right in that roofing system is specified, is addressed, is thought about.
All right. And by the way, if I'm mispronouncing your name, I apologize. Willeen, your roofing questions are awesome today. I'm curious, are you in the middle of a roofing bid or project or something? Because you're thinking of a lot of the questions that I'm thinking about. And this is why I love having the audience here. It's just so helpful for me. And it gives me confidence. If I don't have something on here, there's a good chance if the audience is participating that we're going to end up covering it. I'm going to save your question, Willie, no, for the second half of the program, because they're general shingle roofing questions. So we can go ahead and do it. All right. So guys, let's go to closing thoughts on this. Let's just keep it to the impact resistant shingle port. Maybe we covered everything. Maybe we didn't. Todd, closing thoughts on impact resistant shingles. I'm walking away with the impression that definitely they may be worth checking out depending on your circumstances.
I agree, Ray. I think location and the type of environment, climatically, climate-wise, is important to make a decision on whether or not you want to use one of those shingles. I will always recommend that you try to find yourself within the realm of a lifetime warranty for any of the products out there. And I agree with Todd that they haven't been proven yet, but you're paying someone that says it will be, and there's a peace of mind at that.
Todd W., what do you think? Based on your additional research on this topic, are you sold on impact resistant shingles?
Yeah, I love the promise that they're delivering. I love the science behind it, the reinforcement behind it. Not a whole lot more money. I think I'm probably all in on using it on my house.
Wow. All right. So great. This was a topic that I got nervous about because I found it online, and I always tell the audience, by the way, I love finding things online, and there's a lesson to be learned if I find something that's inaccurate, because there's a good chance that the people out in the audience are also finding that inaccurate. But this turned out to be a really great story, and a topic. I really appreciate the person that sent it in. All right. So let's jump over to roofs and railings. Now, Todd W., do you have to jump or do you want to stay? It's completely up to you. We're happy to have you, but if you got stuff to do, I know I kind of threw this at you, the second half.
I'd love to stick on if I'm still invited. Be great.
You're absolutely still invited. Absolutely. I'm hoping to see a conflict someday that nicely done between both you Todds, because let me ask you this before we get started. Todd V, and I don't mean this in a bad way at all. I'm really from a learning curve. Is there a common conflict that happens between roofers and engineers? There may not be, but I'm just curious.
No, listen, there's always this stigma that, engineers and contractors really don't always see eye to eye. So first and foremost, I think that it's important for every contractor to respect the education that an engineer has, right? Because we as contractors, even with a 4-year degree, I still don't have an engineering degree. And even that I have practical use in the trades and I've done this stuff over years, there's a lot of things that engineers know that we wouldn't. And earlier I jumped in and I said, ventilation is so important. I didn't know that in my beginning years. So, and I learned that from the engineers that I've been working with over all of this time. And so I would have told you that in the beginning years, like someone would have said ventilation and I would have said, prove it. And now I've already seen it proven. And I thank that to the engineer. So I think that it's important when they work together, right? There's 2 ways to see it. Like I just said, we need to respect what the engineers say and come up with, because they have a higher education and they have been in detailed more. As for the engineers, my word of advice to them would be, don't forget the practicality. Some things look great on paper, but can't physically be done exactly the way that they look. So as an engineer, it's sometimes good to say, hey, to the contractor, I drew this up. how about you show me how it works? And then I think that there would be a nice middle road somewhere along the line.
Todd W. Do you see how Todd worked that in? At first, he kind of like smoothed it all over and he buttered up the engineers and everything, but you could see the nitty gritty. The only part he doesn't like is engineers designing things that are not practical for roofers to do. That's the impression I got. Real quick, Todd W., before I ask you if you see any conflicts, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. I think the reason I don't see a lot of it is the level of people that are on my programming, right? I'm not dealing with the roofing guy with a pickup truck or anything. I'm not dealing, with small engineering firms. I'm dealing with some pretty substantial panelists. So I don't think I'm going to see those conflicts. But I wonder if in the general world, yeah, sure, there's probably some conflicts. But anyway, Todd W., same question. Is there a common conflict that sometimes you see, maybe too strong of a word, between roofers and engineers?
As long as both parties look at this as a team, you're a partner, you're a team, you're working together. Like I don't see any of those conflicts. In fact, we often see contractors really appreciate the engineer who's documenting the construction step by step, because it protects that contractor from being accused of doing things that they didn't do. So as long as you're working together as a team, shouldn't be any conflicts there. Talk it through. If the contractor's an issue with your design, let's talk it through.
Okay. Well, Todd, good job. I loved it. Okay. Maybe, you could come on, Todd, one time. We could do impractical plans provided by engineers. That would be fun. And we can look at them. And then let's put some engineers on the spot. We know some really, good ones. We could have Todd here and we just put them on the spot. It would be a lot of fun. Okay. Let me redo the intro on this just in case I end up splitting it up. Roofs and railings. Exterior problems you shouldn't ignore. That's what we're going to talk about. It's going to be varied. It's going to be about a lot of different stuff. Man, I love questions from the audience. And I'm going to start off with the first question from Willeen. Willeen, are you going to let me know if you're involved in a project or not? But the question is, I have heard that manufacturers are putting less asphalt on shingles than in the past. Is that true? And how does that affect the life of the shingle? Todd V.
I am unaware of that statement. I do not know the amount of asphalt that goes into each shingle. It does make sense based on what Todd was saying, how it has different ingredients now to make the shingle more flexible and stronger. So if you put in one more ingredient, you may take one more ingredient out. But I don't have the statistical facts for what's in it and what's not in it. I'm sorry for that.
It's okay. You don't have to analyze and be a chemist for every product, Todd. You just need to know if it works or not based on experience. All right, Todd W., you want to take a stab at that?
And I have seen some literature out there that is the case, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not. In fact, I would argue that they've been redesigned, re-engineered to be better, more durable, more a longer useful life, even with that less amount of asphalt. The composition changed, but I believe, my personal opinion, the durability, they're better shingles now than were made long ago with the more asphalt.
All right. William, there may be a job for you if you're in the New York area with Todd. He's always looking for people that know roofing components, and you definitely know your roofing components. So thank you so much. Okay. Let me have our panel introduce themselves really quickly, just in case I do end up splitting this for some reason video wise. Todd W., let's do a quick intro.
Yeah, great. Again, thank you for the opportunity. Thanks everybody for joining us here today. My quick background, I'm a licensed professional engineer in several states, and I've been conducting reserve studies, helping communities with capital project planning since 1999. Been about 4,000 reserve studies in my time here.
All right, Todd V.
Todd Vignola, Adventures Construction Services, specialize in the maintenance and care for community style living. Appreciate the opportunity to be here today, Ray. Hopefully we can get some people some questions answered for them.
All right. So Todd, you're welcome to check your notes if you brought them. Todd and I had reviewed these Q&A before in this case. So I'll start with Todd V. We're going to do short answers on these because we got a lot of them to get to. Can a deck look safe and still fail? I'm talking about, can a wooden deck look perfectly safe even when it's at risk of collapsing? Todd V.
Yes, very much so. The hidden dangers in decks, they're hidden. They're not the obvious all the time. And it's really where the deck joins to the building. So That is one of the areas that is really vulnerable to failure, especially if installed many years ago under different standards and qualities that are required for today's building codes. So yes, a deck can look perfectly great and you can overload it and simply have a problem thereafter.
Todd W., can a wooden deck look perfectly safe even when it's at risk of collapsing? You can just agree with Todd if you like, or add to it.
It's tough to, the integrity of connections is tough to just walk or take a quick walk around a deck and make sure that and ensure that the integrity is there, especially railing connections. There's not easy to just visually, a non-invasive visual inspection. It's tough to identify that integrity there sometimes. So yeah, absolutely, it could look safe, but you could have serious problems, and especially the connections.
Oh, Willing got back to me. They're taking a look at replacing roofs for their upcoming reserve study. So thank you so much, Willing. And then someone else had asked me, I guess they saw this preview thing here. I just put myself in there for fun. I don't know if you can tell. It looks like the deck's going to collapse. They wanted me to ask you, Todd, have you ever found yourself in this exact situation where you're like inspecting a deck and you feel like it's going to collapse at that very moment?
Yes, a million times over. You know, like Todd was saying a little earlier, invasive testing is really important. So there's many times where we're out there looking at a deck or a group of decks to either respond to the client or the homeowner, and we take a look at what's going on underneath, and you realize the safety hazards that are there right in front of you that no one would even notice. And it's generally usually lack of lag bolts from the ledger board to the building itself, or just rotted wood that people aren't necessarily going to find because they don't crawl underneath their deck all the time and take a look. So structural components fail, fasteners fail, and we've found ourselves many a times looking at decks that people most likely shouldn't be on.
So Todd V., do you have like a guy, his name's Bob, and he's a little bit on the heavy set side, and your test process is you send Bob up there and he jumps on the deck a few times? Is that how you get the process started?
It starts with that, and you know, if it doesn't fail, then we throw a few more Bobs up on the deck and see what happens.
All right. Let's go here with the next one I have here. I'll start with Todd V. Repair. When can a damaged wooden, we're going to talk about wooden decks today, by the way, audience. When can a damaged wooden deck be repaired, and when does the entire deck need to be replaced? Todd V.
So again, all depends on the inspection and the level of the inspection. You may come onto a deck that's relatively new, let's say 7 years, even 10 years or less, made out of all pressure treated lumber. And you may find that the top boards, the deck boards that you actually stand on, they may be cracked or curling or starting to pull through some screws or some nails. So in those circumstances, based on a thorough inspection to make sure the structural integrity of the deck is intact, you can very easily replace some deck boards. Remember, they sit outside year round. They're not furniture. So they're prone to 0-degree weather, and as you've seen this summer, 100-degree weather. That's a big change. That's going to dry wood out. It's going to change the way the wood reacts in the temperatures. It's going to crack. It's going to splinter. It's going to split. So you should be able to maintenance a deck by going in there and finding some of the boards that have weathered and be able to replace those without having to do an entire deck replacement.
Todd W., I'm going to throw you a curveball, and I know you have no prep for this. I don't know if Todd likes curveballs, but he's such a good sport. I have a question. Wood to me is so amazing, and it does apply to decks. Out here on the boardwalk, 29 stories down from me, the wood lasts forever. They get this special kind of wood here, and it's amazing because we're right on the ocean here. Wood lasts a long time as a construction project. I'm surprised we're not doing like vinyl decks or plastic decks. Is there a reason why we're still installing wooden decks? Is it price? Is it because wood's just a fantastic resource? What is the reason? Why aren't we just seeing plastic decks or something?
Yeah, I wonder if you're referring to what's called epi wood, Brazilian hardwood. That's extremely common nowadays, especially in high-end communities, and that does seem to last a long time. So I think the days of the traditional wood decking, cedar, pine, whatever it might be, I think that's starting to change over to composite way more now here. But Epi wood, Brazilian hardwood, seems to keep the trend going here with people. They like the look. You like the look of that wood decking. Just one quick addition to Todd's notes about repair replace. When the stain or paint doesn't last very long anymore, it's probably time to consider replacement of that wood.
Why? What does that show if the stain or paint doesn't last very long? Because there's something negative going on with the wood that's causing an issue with the paint or the stain, or is it because it's a time factor and the paint just naturally has an issue?
The wood has deteriorated to the point where the rate's accelerating. So you use a fresh paint or stain doesn't last very long because that wood continues to deteriorate underneath, and you obviously mess up the stain or the paint.
Todd, I meant the wooden decks you run into, do they vary greatly depending on the developer? Do you go to a community and you're saying like, man, these decks are awesome, and are some really that awful like this?
This Todd or that Todd?
Todd V, I'm sorry.
Okay. So what we find, Ray, is the older the community, the more chances of it being built out of pressure treated lumber. The newer communities are tending to focus on composite materials. I think it's just technology catching up with time and prices bouncing out. If you went for composite materials, 10 years ago, they were way more expensive than pressure treated lumber. Now there's a much smaller gap in cost, and I think people recognize that, especially condos that are in a situation where they know that the upkeep is for 100 years. So I think that you'll find that if they go to replace a pressure treated deck, even though the cost would be a little bit more to go with a synthetic product, they're doing it because of the length that it'll last. If you can get it to last twice as long as a pressure treated deck, and it only costs you 15% more to build it, well, you saved 85% over the long run.
All right, so Kristen Serenini from McGriff Insurance got back to me. I'm going to read her text message as I see it. It was the question from the first half of the program. And the question I asked was, I had texted 2 insurance professionals, but I said, I'm in the middle of a live stream with some roofers and an engineer, and we are wondering if there's a discount in regard to insurance for impact resistant shingles. If you could text me back, I would love to let people know on the live stream. And Kristen Serenini, with the notion that she's in the middle of a managed meeting and she's trying to do this at the same time, responded, on the personal lines, homeowner, single family, it is a discount. It is considered a wind mitigation discount. So there we go. On the commercial side, condo buildings, it would go into the overall rating on the property insurance. Better shingles, newer roofs will rate better, which will improve the premium. And then she did do the disclaimer that she was typing from a meeting. And then she says, Ray, you are so much more knowledgeable than Todd V. And I just wanted to let you know, I made that part up. She didn't put that part in. But thank you so much, Chris. That was really nice of you to fill us in on that. So there you go. Todd W, for me, it sells it a little bit more. There's an insurance discount, I guess, right? I'm not an insurance professional, but.
Another checkbox towards using those a little bit higher cost impact resistant shingles. All right, let me ask you something about windows, because somebody had asked me something about a window, Todd. This is, these questions are questions I got into I just don't get to all the questions all the time. I try to. Can a window leak without dripping inside? Can a window be leaking even when no water is dripping into the room? Todd V.
Yes. So all windows are built into the building themselves. And the window, even though the glass and the frames and the sashes and all that are in good tact, and you don't see water coming into the house, what happens is the frame of the window itself needs to be sealed to the plywood of the building. It needs to be watertight. And if you don't use the correct watertight methods and products, along with flashings, that water can get behind a frame and make its way down and even damage the wall below the window, or even if you're on a second floor, even reflect into the ceiling of the first floor without showing any signs of water coming through the window itself, because it's penetrating from the frame on the exterior of the building and running down and going into the area below it. Obviously all water goes down. So That would be the way that you would not see signs of water in the window, but yet below or around the window.
Todd W., do you have any additional commentary?
You could certainly, that sealant, you could certainly have perimeter sealant failure that results in water filtration into the wall cavity, which could cause problems with the wall system, even though you're not seeing on the interior of the unit. And I almost wonder if the question maybe relate to seal failures, maybe fogging between the panes possibly, where it's not a leak into the unit, but you're having a seal failure. I'm not sure on that one.
Todd W., curveball. I find that I really like throwing you curveball questions, Todd, because I know your engineers, they love to prepare, Todd. They really do. But they're great sports and they always come on, but they're, they really like to prepare things. Todd, Todd W., with all the technology we have, right? It seems to me like, for the most part, the only reason we would get leaks would be because of human error. Am I right or am I wrong? I wouldn't know.
And deferred maintenance, right? Failure to take on to maintain that sealant, the sealant in a timely manner. Could be a masonry issue. Could be the flashing above that window system is not there or improperly installed. The weep system's not there or improperly installed. It's usually, Todd, feel free to disagree with me here, but it's usually not the actual window system itself that's the issue. It's something around that window system that has not been properly maintained or installed that's causing you problems or leaks at that window.
Yeah,
Todd V., let me re-ask the question so I can use it. I try to help you guys out with the shorts all the time, but you got to let me do my thing here. So let me re-ask the question to Todd V. here. Todd V., with modern technology, construction, let me restart. Now you see, I got all frazzled. See, I need to prepare too. Now I'm all frazzled. Todd V., with all the modern components that we're using nowadays for windows and sidings and sealing, is it safe to make the assumption if there's a leak, it's mostly caused by human error?
I would say that the chances of a leak from human error are increased. However, you have to factor in many other situations. Like, for example, you could put a brand new roof on today and install it 100% perfectly, and you could have a driving wind that can tear up a shingle or rip up a nail, and that could cause a leak, and that wouldn't be considered installation error. That would be considered, like an act of God, so to speak. And so, and there's also, remember, there's also product failure. Like, even though everybody says everything is good, cars go back for recalls all the time, right? It's a brand new car. It's got a problem with the backup mirror. Well, the same thing happens. There are products that get delivered to the site that may not fall into the perfection zone, and they may have some issues. I would say that, yes, there is a chance that there's a leak from human error, but don't forget godly acts as well as material deficiencies.
No, we want to blame the contractor and the engineer. It's always their fault. No, of course not. All right. Audience, I love it. If the J channel, I don't even know what a J channel is, I'm guessing, but I'm not even, it's amazing what managers know. You guys should be making like 800 grand a year with all the stuff you know. All right. If the J channel was not installed correctly, but it comes down to the way the window was installed. If they used replacement windows versus using a nailing flange. Todd V., does that make any sense to you?
It does, because window replacements are exactly that. They only replace the window portion, the glass portion, and the sash that it's on. It doesn't replace the frame. The frames are just as old as the glass. So when you go and replace a window, people will say, and there's all the gimmicks out there, renewals and all of this stuff about how great they work. So yes, you may get a replacement window, which will have an R value in the glass of 2 times what your older window did, correct? So now you feel like, okay, great, I'm going to have better insulation and I'm going to have a better product. But the reality is that's only 60% of the window. The other 40% is all the other components, the frame, the nailing flanges, and everything else. Those are just as susceptible of being old and having problems as the glass itself. So if you're going to go to do a window, my advice would always be is get an entire new window, a new frame, so that you can pull the whole entire window out, flange, frame, etc., and put a whole new window in. And we just talked about this a little while ago about how you have to seal the window to the wall itself. So if you only have a replacement window, you're not even exposing the exterior of the flange to to the building itself. You're simply just putting in new glass panes, basically. So my suggestion is, I'm not a fan of replacement windows. I would use full replacement windows. Therefore, when it came to the J channel would have been removed in its entirety and replaced back in its entirety with probably the correct flashing and sealants that are required.
And you know, the manager that sent it in, your community is so lucky to have you, because you could just save them a bundle just based on your knowledge of Windows. All right, I forgot that I have to leave 5 minutes early. So let's do closing thoughts. I'm going to give you 5 seconds, Todd W. Now, if you could do closing thoughts at 30 seconds, I would appreciate it, because I just got reminded I got to get out of here. But Todd W.
Yeah,
for today.
great topic. Whether it's roofing, windows, siding, just make sure everything works together. The flashings, the building wrap, the underlayment, everything has to all work together and be in good shape for that component to work properly. Don't forget a component when doing your projects.
Todd V, I loved the topic today. I thought you guys were awesome. Last minute stuff. You really did the research. Thank you so much. Todd V, closing thoughts.
So as always, trust your professionals. Use your engineers. Respond to them, communicate with them, trust your contractors, know what you're getting into, have a great communication line while the project is taking place. This way, all your questions are answered at that time, not later when there's a problem.
I love it. Thanks both of you guys for being here. And audience, you were awesome today. Thank you so much for the questions. Bye, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.